It all began not with a trumpet blast or some royal announcement, but with a whisper. The kind of whisper that slithers through palace walls and leaves your skin crawling before your brain even catches up. No press release, no official seal, just an anonymous white envelope dropped on Prince William's desk in the dead of night like a ghost had slipped it there. But this wasn't any ordinary envelope. The paper was aged, the seal marked with the unmistakable crest of Queen Elizabeth II, as if the late Queen's hand had reached out from the grave itself. William's gut twisted the second his eyes landed on it. The London fog outside pressed hard against the windows like it knew what was about to be unleashed. He tore it open. The paper crackled too loudly in the silence of his study, the sound of trouble, of history unraveling. Inside, a dry-looking document, harmless at first glance, but the words, oh, the words cut like daggers in velvet. They didn't shout, they whispered, lines about succession, hints about influence, vague legal jargon that, when read carefully, questioned William's place in the royal line. And there, hidden in the corner of the last page, sat a discreet reference tied directly to Camilla's private office. Yes, Camilla, the woman who had clawed her way from mistress to queen consort, smiling her way through decades of controversy. On the surface, she was charming, poised, even grandmotherly at times. But William, he'd never truly trusted her, not since he was a teenager, watching his mother cry alone while Diana warned him, the palace isn't just loyalty and crowns. Some people play the long game. And now, staring at this paper, William realized Diana had been right all along, because as King Charles weakened by the day, Camilla grew bolder, stronger. Her circle tightened. Her family, people with no blood tied to the crown, started orbiting dangerously close to royal power. Take her son, Tom Parker Bowles. With his smug charm and book deals, he had suddenly become a regular face at royal events. Then there was her sister, Annabel Elliot. Somehow, Annabel had quietly secured multi-million-pound contracts to renovate royal properties. Too convenient, too quiet, too deliberate. William sat frozen in his study, the document trembling in his hands. His blood pounded. Camilla wasn't just smiling for cameras. She was laying bricks for her own dynasty. And William knew he couldn't fight this battle alone. He reached for the phone and dialed the one person in the family who had the backbone for palace wars. Princess Anne, the warrior, the no-nonsense aunt who had survived every storm the monarchy had faced. "I'll be there by morning," she said flatly, no hesitation. Anne had seen palace games play out for decades. She knew when a threat was real. And this wasn't about Camilla trying to shine as queen. Oh no, it was about her carefully, quietly, building an empire of her own. Anne arrived at Kensington Palace before sunrise, trench coat swept across her shoulders, face carved with that icy resolve only she could carry. She flipped through the damning document William had received and said without a flicker of doubt, "This isn't about Camilla being queen. It's about her dynasty. She's elevating Tom. She's making Annabelle indispensable. And now she's manipulating documents from the past. She's setting up her family to rule, even if Charles can't." The words hit William like a blow. Camilla hadn't just been smiling sweetly from the sidelines. She'd been playing chess while the rest of them thought they were still playing checkers. And she wasn't subtle anymore. Just days later, under the dazzling glow of a Mayfair ballroom chandelier, Tom Parker Bowles strutted onto the stage. His smile was rehearsed, his words carefully scripted. Donors, journalists, influencers, all of London's elite watched him with curious eyes. Tom's speech? Oh, it wasn't just about food writing or his latest book. No, it was laced with poison, every line crafted to undermine William. "Prince William is noble, yes," Tom said, pausing for dramatic effect. "But leadership demands more than duty. It demands heart, real connection." The crowd shifted uneasily. Cameras clicked. Whispers spread. Was he really suggesting William, the future king, lacked heart? At the back of the room, Camilla clutched a glass of red wine, her hand trembling ever so slightly. She despised public risk, but desperation had forced her hand. Charles was slipping. Time was running out. If Tom was to be positioned as a legitimate royal figure, it had to happen now. Tonight was meant to be his elevation. But oh, how quickly the gamble backfired. By morning, tabloids were ablaze. Thacker Tom V's William trended across social media. Headlines called him bold or arrogant, depending on which paper you picked up. What was supposed to be Tom's crowning moment turned into a scandalous power play gone wrong. And while Camilla seethed, Catherine moved like lightning. At Kensington Palace, Kate brushed Charlotte's hair with one hand while scrolling through the explosive headlines with the other. She didn't waste words. She simply forwarded the links to her communications team with a note, "Damage control immediately." That very afternoon, Catherine stepped out in emerald green, her smile radiant, her children, George and Louis, by her side. She painted murals with school children, read books, kissed Louis's cheek in full view of the cameras. And just as the press lenses began to click, William arrived hand in hand with George. The photos, instant dynamite. The perfect family, the trustworthy royals. By the time their car pulled away, the images had gone viral. Catherine crouching beside children, William holding George's hand. The contrast was brutal. And in her Chelsea apartment, Camilla sat frozen as the images flooded every platform. Her son's big moment crushed under the tidal wave of William and Kate's polished family brand. Tom, ever the optimist, leaned toward her. The press will cool down, won't they? People liked the speech, didn't they? But Camilla didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep down, she knew the public wasn't buying what she was selling. That evening, William met Anne again, this time in a discreet private club. No paparazzi, no prying eyes. Anne's voice was calm, but her words cut sharp. Camilla's bleeding public goodwill. She'll pull back and regroup. She's not stupid. William leaned forward, voice low and deliberate. Then we don't wait, we push. Anne studied him, then gave the slightest nod. With precision, not destruction, just breaking her grip. And so began the quietest, deadliest investigation the palace had seen in years. Behind closed doors, trusted allies in the Privy Council dug into Annabel Elliott's royal contracts. Every invoice, every bid, every signature. The findings? Scandalous. Inflated costs, suspicious vendors. Money routed through a maze of shell companies. This wasn't sloppiness, it was deliberate. And worse, Camilla's signature popped up as approving authority again and again. Anne gathered the evidence piece by piece, each one more damning than the last. It wasn't just corruption, it was betrayal. And William? He didn't want scandal. He didn't want headlines of chaos. But justice? Justice, he demanded. Meanwhile, Catherine prepared her next move. More family outings, more charity work, no mudslinging, just shining in the public eye. Every photo, every smile, crafted to remind the nation, this is the future, not Camilla, not her family. And for the first time, the tide was shifting. The air inside the Privy Council chamber was thick with tension, heavy with centuries of history. Long mahogany tables groaned under the weight of leather-bound folders, each one crammed with evidence Anne's team had unearthed. Emails, invoices, bank records, proof. One by one, the counselors flipped through the documents, their faces turning grim. 55 million pounds in overcharges, Anne said coldly, her voice echoing through the room like a gavel. All funneled through royal contracts, approved under Camilla's authority. Gasps broke the silence. A senior advisor slammed his palm on the table. We served under Queen Elizabeth. She kept this family clean. This is treachery against everything she stood for. And for once, no one disagreed. A unanimous vote followed. Annabel Elliott, stripped of every contract, every privilege revoked. Her access to Clarence House and Sandringham, gone. As for Tom Parker Bowles, though he wasn't tied directly to the money trail, the optics were too toxic. Overnight, he was quietly removed from all royal-facing duties. No more speeches, no more appearances, a silent exile. It wasn't a public scandal, yet. The palace would never openly accuse a sitting queen consort. But the message behind closed doors was clear. Camilla's grip was broken, and when word reached her Chelsea apartment, the walls finally began to close in. The television blared images of William and Catherine at a children's hospice, glowing in golden afternoon light, surrounded by grateful parents and beaming kids. Headlines praised their grace and duty. On social media, a tidal wave of admiration. The perfect royal couple, the future of the monarchy. Camilla's phone stayed silent. No calls, no allies. Until Annabelle's broken sobs crackled through the speaker. They've taken everything. You promised we were untouchable. But Camilla couldn't answer. She had no promises left to give. And then came the final blow. Charles, frailer than ever, summoned her. His voice was clipped, his gaze icy. You need to step back. No more appearances. No more pushing. Let this settle, or it will destroy what's left. It wasn't just advice, it was an order. Camilla left that room knowing exactly what it meant. Her era of quiet influence was over. Meanwhile, at Kensington Palace, the atmosphere was lighter for the first time in months. Catherine curled up beside William on the couch, her hand tracing circles across his knuckles. You did the right thing, she whispered. For your grandmother. For us. William's voice cracked with exhaustion. I didn't want a war, but I couldn't let her turn the monarchy into a family business. Anne, ever the warrior, phoned later that night. Her words were sharp but warning. Camilla's retreating, but don't mistake silence for surrender. William nodded, even though she couldn't see. We stay ready. And ready, they stayed. 2 weeks later, William took the stage at a grand event honoring Queen Elizabeth's lifelong devotion to British charities. Catherine sat in the front row, her eyes fixed on him, pride glowing in every glance. William's speech was short, but oh, it cut straight to the bone. My grandmother believed the crown should serve, not rule. That integrity must always come before comfort. And that family does not mean blind loyalty. It means protecting the values passed down to us. The applause thundered through the hall, shaking the chandeliers. Across London, in her lonely Chelsea flat, Camilla sat in silence, her glass of wine untouched, her family fractured, her name no longer whispered with respect in palace corridors, but scribbled between the lines of scandal, her empire reduced to shadows. And at the center of the monarchy, bruised but unbroken, stood William, Catherine, and Anne, together, untouchable and ready for whatever storm came next.